As a young boy of only 8, his love for boats was apparent. He had already begun to drive. When World War II broke out, Bill joined the Army. A man who could never turn down an audience, he became an extremely talented musician performing in the USO. When the war ended, Bill returned to Detroit, where he worked with his father at the family-owned car dealership. But his desire to race boats continued to eat away at him. In 1950, he finally got to drive a boat of significance, the Miss Great Lakes. But it wasn't until 1955 that he moved west. He became a disc jockey at King Radio. Designer Ted Jones recommended Bill to Willard Rhodes, who was building a boat called the Miss Thriftway. He passed his test and was given the ride despite resistance by the Seattle-based crew, which was reluctant to have a Detroit native in the cockpit. In that same year, Muncey won the final heat of the 55 Gold Cup, the slow-mo Ford gone dead in the water.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the young man who, with tremendous courage, you just saw drive Miss Thriftway around this course for 30 miles with a shattered hull. Now, when did it happen, Bill?
I don't have the slightest idea, Tommy. I caught just a corner of it out beside the engine there, and it didn't look like much to me. I didn't even realize it was bad it was until I got out of the boat here.
Oh, you didn't realize that it was that badly shattered?
Oh, no. I wouldn't have cared. I'd have gone anyhow.
I know you would, Bill.
But the Gale 5 had more bonus points. Muncey was bitterly disappointed. His controversial reputation was born. In 1956, more controversy. Muncey appeared to have won his first Gold Cup. But then another argument. It was ruled Muncey clipped a buoy, and the cup was given to the Miss Pepsi. But after viewing the films, it was found that the buoy was not dislodged. So Muncey was awarded the Gold Cup the next day. In '57, Bill dominated the sport, winning his second Gold Cup and made his debut in the first cab-over, the Thriftway 2. 1957 and '58 were disastrous years. Driving the Miss Thriftway in Madison, Indiana, the boat suddenly disintegrated. The boat that had dominated unlimited racing was now only a memory. But there was new hope with the new boat the next year. It was time for the annual classic in Seattle when disaster struck a second time. The boat lost its rudder, sending the Thriftway crashing into a Coast Guard cutter.
The race is being stopped. There is Miss Thriftway, not on the beach exactly, but there she is. And where is Bill?
Muncey was able to jump from the cockpit before the impact. But in 1959, Muncey was back. Another tough Gold Cup, and Muncey lost to a man by the name of Bill Stead and the Maverick Camp out of Detroit. In 1960, there was no Gold Cup, but it didn't slow Muncey and the Thriftway Camp down. Bill set a world straightaway record of 192 miles per hour. In '61 and '62, Bill enhanced his rivalry with the Maverick Camp by winning his third and fourth Gold Cups. In 1963, the end of an era. The Thriftway, which had been named the Miss Century 21, was retired. The Miss Bardol was now the hottest boat on the circuit. In '64 and '65, Muncey spent some time in several boats, including the Notre Dame, Dollar Bill, the Such Crest. And in '66, Muncey signed to drive the Miss U.S. But Bill seriously contemplated retiring from the sports. At the President's Cup, racing itself nearly fell to its knees with the deaths of driver Ron Musson, Rex Manchester, and Don Wilson. Muncey felt it was only fate that spared him. Just 2 weeks later, Muncey was thrown from the Miss U.S. He was saved by his flak jacket. Later, Chuck Thompson, another veteran driver, was killed. After an off-season of soul-searching, Bill's love for the hydros brought him back for the 1967 season. In 1968, Muncey and the U.S. won the World Championship. In '69, he joined the Meyer Sheet Metal Camp. He won 3 races, and the working relationship between Muncey and Lee Shaneth was born. In '71, the Atlas Van Lines Camp hit the hydro scene. In the Atlas in '72, Muncey picked up his 4th Gold Cup, tying Gar Wood's all-time mark, which was very important to Muncey. But it was another 4 years before he became competitive again. He bought out the Pay Impact crew in camp and eventually became the national high point champion. In '77, Bill was reluctant, but went on to the now familiar cab-over Atlas. His crew chief of that time, Jim Lucero, insisted Bill be retrained to drive this new boat, even at his age and experience level. For some reason, the death of his old friend, Ron Musson, was still on Muncey's mind. But he raced on. He won his 6th Gold Cup, the only man to do so. In '78 and '79, well, it brought Bill his 7th and 8th Gold Cup victories. In 1980, the Budweiser came into prominence with their Griffin-powered cab-over. Muncey pushed his boat to the ragged edge, however, for a victory in the Columbia Cup at Pasco. He followed that with another win just 2 weeks later on Lake Washington. Last year, Bill again pushed the boat to its limits, trying to compete with the new Budweiser. He led in many final heats, only to have the boat break and watch the Budweiser or some other boat fly by for the checkered flag. Bill had one victory last year, that taking place at Evansville, Indiana. Bill had one more chance to catch the Budweiser, the World Championship race in Acapulco, Mexico. The 2-mile freshwater oval was considered by many to be the fastest course ever run by the Thunderboats, but also one of the most dangerous. The final heat, the richest in powerboat racing history, shaped up as a barn burner. The Squire's Shop, the Pay and Pack, the Madison, the Bud, and of course, the Atlas. The start of the race is vintage Bill Muncey. Tucking into lane 2, the Atlas roars by everyone as the gun sounds. Out of the first turn, it's all Muncey. As they roar down the backstretch, something happens. Something totally unexpected. The nose of the Atlas slowly becomes airborne, finally blowing over backwards, throwing Muncey into the water. Milner Irvin puts the Madison sideways to avoid the Atlas. Chip Hanauer, with the sun directly in his eyes, crashes into the wreckage of the badly damaged Atlas. Milner Irvin is injured. His boat, the Madison, has the skid fin ripped from the boat's left side, causing damage to the sponson and the bottom of the hull. Chip Hanauer is visibly shaken. The Squire, badly damaged, finally sinking. Bill Muncey is flown to the Acapulco Navy Hospital in critical condition. At 9:15 p.m., the winningest driver in hydroplane history is pronounced dead.